Dear students, in this chapter of microorganisms, our friend and foe, we discussed about various usefulness and some harmful activities of microorganisms. In this respect, today we are going to discuss about nitrogen fixation. Okay, so you have learned about the bacterium rhizobium in class 6th and 7th. It is involved in the fixation of nitrogen in leguminous plants, that is in pulses. Okay, leguminous plants in botany is called. Okay, and mainly normal pulses will be belong to this family. So recall that rhizobium lives in the root nodules of leguminous plants. Okay, such as beans and peas, with which it has a symbiotic relationship. Sometimes nitrogen get fixed through the action of lightning, but you know that the amount of nitrogen in the atmosphere remains constant. Okay, you may wonder how. Let us understand this in the next section. Okay, today we are going to discuss about nitrogen cycle. So about this cycle you can understand this is a gaseous cycle, nitrogen cycle, oxygen cycle. You maybe heard about it, and in class 7th you read about water cycle. Okay, so these cycles are for the you can say that they are the cycles which help in the you can say that to keep the constant amount of any element in the atmosphere. Okay, so about leguminous plant you already know about them in class 6th and 7th, also you read about them. Okay, so there is a figure also given that of roots of leguminous plant with root nodules. Okay, so these are the root nodules if you find them. Okay, these are root nodules. Okay, in that rhizobium bacteria is present. Okay, which help in nitrogen fixation. You learned somehow, you know about them also. Okay, so I'm starting the nitrogen cycle so you can more understand better. Our atmosphere has 78% nitrogen gas. Okay, so nitrogen is one of the essential constituents of all living organisms as parts of proteins, chlorophyll, nucleic acid, and vitamins. So whenever we are talking about the amount of that nitrogen gas, that is 78%, it means whenever we write anything in terms of percentage, it means it comes from the total amount from 100. Okay, from 100%, the big amount of 78% of our atmosphere will be covered by this nitrogen. So the atmosphere nitrogen cannot be taken directly by plants and animals. Okay, so certain bacteria and algae present in the soil fix nitrogen from the atmosphere and convert it into compounds of nitrogen. Okay, so this is the reason why plants have to fix that nitrogen, because they cannot be take it directly from the atmosphere. Okay, and animals also cannot take it directly from the atmosphere, so we have to eat pulses, but the role of nitrogen is not in our body, but it is essential for the plants, so they that why they fix the nitrogen. Once nitrogen converted into these unusable compounds, it can be utilized by plants from the soil through their root system. Okay, so nitrogen is used by the plants through their root system. Okay, when it converted into nitrogenous compounds. So nitrogen is then used for the synthesis of plant proteins and other compounds. Animals feeding on plants get these proteins and other nitrogen compounds. Okay, as you can see, figure 2.10 is also given here, in which full nitrogen cycle is discussed. Okay, we will talk it later. First, we complete this passage that when plants and animals die, bacteria and fungi present in the soil convert the nitrogenous wastes into nitrogen compound to be used by plants again. Certain other bacteria convert some part of them to nitrogen gas, which goes back into the atmosphere. As a result, the percentage of nitrogen in the atmosphere remains more or less constant. Okay, so there are two type of bacteria. One bacteria which fix the nitrogen, and another one which you can say that convert this nitrogenous waste into nitrogen again. Okay, so denitrification, the process is known as denitrification. Okay, further things you will understand in high classes. So from be brief in given here that you can see in figure 2.10. Okay, suppose first one, this is atmospheric nitrogen here. Okay, atmospheric nitrogen. Then it converted into compounds of nitrogen in the soil by direct lightning process, you can see. Okay, and bacteria turns compounds of nitrogen into gaseous nitrogen. Like this is denitrification. Okay, you can look at the arrows. Okay, whenever it comes downside, it makes it fixes nitrogen fixing bacteria fix atmospheric nitrogen. Left hand side you can see. Okay, first nitrogen fixing bacteria here fix the atmospheric nitrogen. Bacteria in turn fix nitrogen into nitrogenous compounds. Okay, so there are two type of process you can see. First, nitrogen fixing bacteria fix atmospheric nitrogen. Then, bacteria in turn fix nitrogen into nitrogenous compounds. Okay. Then compounds of nitrogen in the soil present. Okay. So they uptake by the plants as the need, as per their need, and animal eat plants, and nitrogenous waste from excretion and death of animals again goes back to the soil. Okay, then one group of bacteria turn compounds of nitrogen into gaseous nitrogen again. So this is the nitrogen cycle. Okay, this is very simple thing, you can understand very easily. These type of nitrogen cycle is very simple. Cycling means, okay, you have to understand the word cycle. Okay, it means again and again. Okay, from beginning to move it again in the starting point. Okay, so this is called a cycle, that's why we termed it as a nitrogen cycle. Okay, cycling of nutrient nitrogen. So this is about the nitrogen cycle. Okay, in your I think in 8th class there is no necessity of know about the names of those bacteria on and which fix nitrogen or denitrifying bacteria, so here not given. Okay, so that's how your chapter is completed. In this chapter, you understand about the microorganisms are too small and are not visible to unaided eye. They can live in all kinds of environment, ranging from ice cold climate to hot springs and deserts to marshy lands. Microorganisms are found in air, water, and in the bodies of plants and animals. They may be unicellular or multicellular. Microorganisms include bacteria, fungi, protozoa, and some algae. Viruses, though different from the above mentioned living organisms, are considered microbes. Viruses are quite different from other microorganisms. They reproduce only inside the host organism, bacterium, plant, or animal cell. Some microorganisms are useful for commercial production of medicines and alcohol. Some microorganisms decompose the organic waste and dead plants and animals into simple substances and clean up the environment. Protozoans cause serious disease like dysentery and malaria. Okay, some of the microorganisms grow on our food and cause food poisoning. Some microorganisms reside in the root nodules of leguminous plants. They can fix nitrogen from air into soil and increase the soil fertility. Okay, these are the things which we discussed today. If you missed out the previous ones, you can watch again from the playlist student corner. Okay, these topics are already covered, that's why I'm just repeating them very fast. Some bacteria present in the soil fix nitrogen from the atmosphere and convert into nitrogenous compounds. Certain bacteria convert compounds of nitrogen present in soil into nitrogen gas, which is released to the atmosphere. Okay, so this is how a cycle of nitrogen occur here. Okay, atmospheric nitrogen fixed by that nitrogen fixing bacteria and convert them into nitrogen compound to the soil, and from soil they again go back to the nitrogen, go back in their normal form by denitrifying bacteria. Okay, so these things you have to understand. So I hope you will understand till here. If you still find any confusion in this chapter, so you can ask to me. If you find any confusion here till okay, in nitrogen cycle, today the topic is completed, nitrogen fixation, nitrogen cycle, and previous ones we already completed the different topics of this chapter. Food preservation also completed. Okay, food poisoning and disease causing microorganisms in plants, in animals, and their usefulness also discussed previously, and how vaccine is discovered. Okay, so these all topics were covered of this chapter. So I hope you will understand, and if you have any confusion you can ask.